Bill is 68. He clocked into work for 40 years, bought a beautiful suburban home back in 1985, and raised 3 kids. If you looked at his life from the street, you would assume he solved the money game completely. Then you have Susan. She is 52. She runs a marketing team, drives a brand new SUV, and takes her family to a beach resort every single summer. To anyone watching, she is winning. Then we have David. He is 38. He pays down his student loans, watches his friends buy houses he cannot afford, and spends his weekends finding the best brunch spots in the city. Finally, meet Mia. She is 24. She runs a side hustle from her phone and bought her first index fund last month. She pays more attention to money than anyone else in her family tree. 4 totally different people living in 4 different decades. They all fell into the exact same financial trap. It is not a similar trap. It is the exact same trap wearing different clothes. You probably feel like you are doing the right things right now. You budget your paycheck, you check your banking app before you buy something, but you might be living one of these 4 versions right now without even realizing it. Most people who fall into this trap actually care about their money. They think before they spend. The trap is way sneakier than just being careless with a credit card. At some point in your life, the world around you defined what success should look like. You saw a certain kind of house, you noticed a certain kind of car, you watched friends go on certain types of holidays. Nobody sat you down and gave you a list of rules. You just absorbed it. We all do it. You see what gets celebrated by the people you respect. When you finally earn enough money to live that version of success, you buy into it. It feels like the natural next step. You worked hard, you got the raise. Why wouldn't you buy the thing that shows you made it? You were just following the unwritten rules your generation handed you. You never question them because everyone around you follows them too. From the inside, this never feels like a mistake. It feels like progress. It feels responsible. But following those rules blindfolds you to the actual math happening in your bank account. Let's look at how this broke down for each generation. Bill grew up watching his parents rent tight apartments for decades. Back in the 1970s and 80s, owning a home was the ultimate signal that you made it. A house gave you stability, it gave you status in the neighborhood. So when Bill got his first decent paycheck and the bank approved him for a massive mortgage, he signed the papers fast. That is exactly what you did back then. It made total sense. Interest rates were high, but inflation pushed wages up too. Property values climbed year after year. Today, Bill owns a house worth 4 times what he paid for it. On paper, the guy is rich, but his daily reality tells a totally different story. Almost his entire net worth is trapped inside those 4 walls. He lost his promised company pension during a corporate shakeup 20 years ago. He saved some cash, but it will not cover 25 years of living expenses. If he wants to eat out or travel, he has to sell the house. But selling means leaving the only neighborhood he knows. He feels stuck in a wealthy trap. The house was never the actual problem for Bill. The trap was believing the house was the entire financial plan. He spent 30 years fixing the roof, planting the garden, and adding a new deck to keep up the appearance of wealth. He funded that physical signal while ignoring the boring retirement accounts that actually buy you freedom. When you tie all your security to one physical asset, you lose your choices later in life. You get to live in a nice place, but you lose the ability to control your own time. You spend your senior years worrying about property taxes instead of enjoying your grandkids. That fear of losing the house replaces the peace of mind you worked 40 years to earn. We put so much emotional weight into owning property because it is something our neighbors can see. You cannot park an index fund in your driveway, but relying on just the house leaves a fragile foundation underneath a very pretty life. The arrival looks real, but one bad medical bill can shake the whole thing apart. Susan walked into a much quieter trap. It did not happen with one giant mortgage signature. It happened through 100 small choices that felt totally reasonable at the time. Her generation watched their parents struggle on one income. They promised themselves they would earn more and live better. And Susan did exactly that. She climbed the ladder and made real money. But every single time she got a raise, her daily life expanded just enough to swallow it. When she got promoted at 32, she upgraded her car. When her salary hit 6 figures at 38, she moved to a bigger house with an extra bedroom. When her kids started high school, she added an expensive overseas trip every winter. You look at those choices and they make perfect sense. She worked late nights for that money. She genuinely earned those rewards. But this quiet habit is just the 1980s real estate trap, wearing a modern business suit. It is the illusion of getting ahead while actually running in place. Her income went up, but her breathing room stayed exactly the same. The gap between money coming in and money going out tells the real story. For Susan, that gap never grew. She just moved the exact same stressful math up to a higher tax bracket. The core problem is not that she buys nice things. The issue is that her expenses sprinted just as fast as her paycheck. Today, at 52, she looks deeply successful to her neighbors. She has solid home equity and a driveway full of nice metal. But she is only a decade away from retirement, and her savings rate is dangerously thin for someone earning that much. The arrival signal for her friends was lifestyle. You buy the nice experiences to prove your hard work meant something. You put those experiences on a monthly payment plan. But deep down, Susan feels a constant low-level panic. She knows she cannot lose her job, not even for a month, because the monthly burn rate is so high. She built a gorgeous cage, she has nice things, but the things own her time. True wealth is waking up and knowing you could just walk away today if you wanted to. David faces a completely different landscape. If you grew up in the shadow of the 2008 financial crash, you already know the heavy reality here. A whole generation watched their early career years vanish right when they needed to build their foundation. The rules changed fast. Wages dragged on the floor while housing prices launched into orbit. When you look at the math, you realize the traditional milestones are locked behind a massive paywall. So David made a totally rational pivot. When you cannot afford the things that signal adulthood, like a deed to a house or a fat pension, you buy what you can reach. For David, that meant experiences. He bought concert tickets, weekend trips, heavy restaurant bills, and convenience services. The culture cheered him on the entire time. Every blog post and brand told him to spend money on memories instead of things. They told him older generations had it wrong. They said collecting passport stamps was the ultimate form of wealth. He spent his 20s gathering beautiful stories instead of stocks. At 38, David feels a quiet dread when he looks at his bank app. He had amazing trips, genuinely. The photos are great, but he owns zero property and has almost nothing compounding in the background. The trap here was not buying a flight to Europe. The trap was using those weekend escapes as a substitute for building real assets. He let an entire cultural movement convince him that avoiding investments was somehow a profound lifestyle choice. When your arrival signal becomes a lived aesthetic, you end up masking financial insecurity with a busy calendar. David manages his deep anxiety about the future by simply booking another trip. He stays moving so he does not have to look at the math. This connects directly to a fear we all share. We want to feel like we are moving forward in life. If the big traditional wins feel rigged against us, we create smaller wins we can control. But an expensive dinner does not pay for your retirement. Those memories are beautiful, but they will not cover your rent when you are 70 years old. The gap between looking wealthy and being wealthy never goes away. It just shape-shifts to fit the times. If recognizing these subtle traps helps you rethink how you direct your own paycheck, hit subscribe so we can keep mapping out the actual rules of money together every week. Because the financial game keeps changing, and the newest version is the most aggressive one yet. The youngest adults today face an entirely different digital landscape. They are, without a doubt, the most financially educated group in human history. Teenagers watch market breakdowns on their phones while riding the bus. College students casually debate index funds over cheap coffee. They know exactly what a portfolio does before they even land their first salary. You would naturally assume they completely dodge the mistakes that caught their parents. You would think they are safely stacking assets in the background. But knowing the technical vocabulary of money does not automatically protect you from human nature. They walked right into the brightest trap of all. Mia built her financial life entirely online. Her version of Arrival is not a quiet suburban house or a stamped passport. It is a highly curated aesthetic. It is the perfect desk setup glowing with soft lights. It is the designer workout gear and the $40 water bottle that tells the world she has taste and income. She performs her success for a digital audience of thousands every single day. And the cruel twist here is that she actually invests. She transfers $50 into a brokerage account every month. She feels genuinely proud of that habit, and honestly, she should be. Starting at 24 is a massive advantage. But she also drops $250 a month on trendy items purely for how they look on her video feed. The trap for her generation is not financial ignorance. The trap is financial performance. They learn the right language but use it to perform wealth instead of silently building it. They post beautifully edited videos about passive income, while their daily spending habits quietly destroy their actual savings rate. You look at these 4 people across 4 different decades and realize they all fell for the exact same illusion. They just bought a different version of the costume. Escaping this loop is actually pretty rare. Most people never figure it out. When you look closely at the ones who do, they all share one specific trait. They make a totally conscious choice to look less rich than they actually are. They separate the visual signal of wealth from the boring substance of it. They delay buying the costume. They drive the older car for another 5 years. They stay in the starter house instead of upgrading. They skip a few weekend trips. They resist the urge to buy the aesthetic upgrade. And they take the cash difference and put it somewhere quiet where it compounds. Doing this isn't mathematically complicated at all, but it fights against every single social instinct we have in our brains. We want our peers to know we're doing okay. We want to feel the validation of a hard day of work. That friction is exactly why even really smart people fall right back into the trap. You have to actively fight the urge to show people you made it. Let's look at what escaping the trap would actually mean for each of these 4 people. We can start with Bill. His version of getting out doesn't mean he has to sell his beloved house. It just means changing where his next dollar goes. He keeps the property, but he aggressively funds his retirement accounts instead of building another deck. He stops going all in on a single physical asset. He creates a second pillar of wealth that he can actually spend at the grocery store. This fixes the fragile foundation. He gets to keep the neighborhood he loves, but he also buys back his peace of mind. He stops trading his future choices for curb appeal. The relief he'd feel just knowing a medical bill won't force him out of his home is worth way more than a new roof. It changes how he sleeps at night. He shifts his identity from the guy with the nicest lawn to the guy who owns his own time. Susan faces a slightly different battle because her trap is built into her daily routine. Her escape route starts the very next time she gets a raise at work. Instead of letting her spending habits swallow the entire amount, she makes a simple deal with herself. She picks one specific lifestyle upgrade she really wants, and she automatically banks the other half. She lets her income growth outpace her lifestyle growth for the first time in 20 years. That space between her paycheck and her credit card bill starts to widen. She finally gets to breathe. The constant panic of keeping up the payments slowly fades away. She realizes that buying fewer nice things actually buys her more security. She still gets the reward of her hard work, but she stops mortgaging her future to get it. When you have real cash sitting in the bank, you don't need the brand new car to prove you're successful. The money sitting there quietly gives you a quiet confidence that a luxury car lease never will. David has to rewrite his entire relationship with his weekends to find his way out. He doesn't have to stop traveling completely. He just has to change the rhythm. His version of escaping looks like booking one really great trip a year instead of 4 quick getaways. He takes the cash he saves from those missing trips and drops it into an index fund every single month. He sets it up on auto pay, so he never even has to think about the choice. He stops using a busy calendar to hide from his financial reality. It takes real courage to sit at home on a Saturday night and watch your friends post photos from a restaurant you chose not to afford. You feel a sudden pinch of missing out. But that temporary sting gets replaced by something much better. He watches his net worth finally move past zero. He builds a foundation that actually lasts longer than a 24-hour video story. He trades the quick hit of a weekend brunch for the deep satisfaction of knowing his future self is safe. Mia has the biggest advantage of all if she decides to pivot right now. She has time on her side. Her escape plan involves changing the subject of her digital life. She makes the act of investing the central focus instead of the expensive desk aesthetic. She lets her audience watch the real numbers grow. She stops buying the $40 water bottles to look wealthy on camera. She builds the actual account balance faster than she builds the illusion of the balance. The pressure to constantly upgrade your background drops away when your actual bank account looks good. You stop needing external validation when the internal math works. She could reach true financial independence by age 40 if she just delays the costume a little longer. It requires turning off the noise of the internet and trusting the quiet process of compounding money. You protect your peace when you realize nobody else cares about your budget. They're all just too worried about funding their own versions of the exact same illusion. The basic rule behind escaping the trap works every single time you apply it. Assets always come first, and the lifestyle comes second. You don't have to live like a monk forever. You just delay the fun stuff until your growing assets can genuinely pay for the upgrades. The goal is to let your money do the heavy lifting while you sleep. But you can't get to that point if you spend every dollar building a physical prop to impress your neighbors. This goes right back to that quiet fear we all carry. We worry that if we don't buy the things our friends buy, we're falling behind. We feel a very real anxiety when the driveway looks empty. But the people who actually win the money game embrace that temporary discomfort. They find comfort in the hidden numbers instead of the visible metal. You sleep a lot better when your security comes from a diversified portfolio instead of a brand new SUV. You stop playing a game you can never win. You start playing for your own freedom. You look closely at Bill, Susan, David, and Mia, and you realize something important. None of these people are stupid. None of them are inherently bad with cash. They all carefully check their accounts. They all worked hard. They just followed the exact script their generation handed them without questioning the ending. They prioritized looking like they had arrived over actually arriving. We judge people harshly for this, but the truth is, you probably did the exact same thing. When everyone around you agrees on what success looks like, it feels crazy to pick a different path. You doubt yourself when you choose a boring fund over a beautiful vacation. The cultural pressure is massive. It constantly pushes you to spend today to validate your hard work yesterday. Understanding this removes the shame from the equation. You didn't fail. You were just playing by rules designed to keep you broke while looking rich. Once you see the pattern, you get your power back. The very first step out of any trap is simply being able to name it out loud. You have to sit down, open your banking app, and look at the brutal math without flinching. You have to ask yourself a hard question. Which version of this illusion are you living in right now? Is your entire safety net locked inside the drywall of your house? Did your daily expenses grow so fast that they ate every single raise you ever earned? Are you trying to soothe the deep fear of the future by booking another expensive experience today? Or are you buying things just to show a digital crowd that you have good taste? When you finally identify the specific costume you wear, it loses its grip on you. You stop feeling that vague panic in the back of your mind. You suddenly see exactly where the money leaks out. You realize you have the ability to plug the hole right now. The moment of absolute clarity hurts for a second, but it immediately gives you a roadmap to fix it. Dropping the mask completely changes how you experience your daily life. You stop scrolling past financial posts hoping the math will magically work out. You start walking past the nice cars in the parking lot without feeling a single ounce of envy. You know exactly what that metal costs in lost freedom. When your friends talk about their amazing new kitchen remodel, you can just be happy for them. You don't feel the desperate urge to match their spending. You built a quiet confidence that comes from owning assets instead of things. Your focus shifts away from impressing strangers at a stoplight. You put all that energy toward buying back your own time. You stop caring about the arrival signal. You just focus purely on the destination. You let go of the pressure to prove your worth through a credit card. It turns out the ultimate luxury isn't a big house or a stamped passport. The ultimate luxury is waking up with choices. You get to decide exactly what your day looks like. Every generation gets sold a specific lie about what wealth should look like in their era. The people who actually build real freedom are the ones willing to look a little ordinary while they do the math in the background. They stop trading away their future comfort to buy a temporary applause today. They realize that actual wealth is completely silent. It doesn't need a shiny aesthetic or a driveway full of metal to prove it exists. The numbers do all the talking behind closed doors. When you finally stop performing your success for other people, you can direct all that raw cash back into your own life. You start building the quiet, boring foundation that lets you sleep peacefully through any economic storm. If you're ready to drop the costume and start mapping out the actual mechanics of money with me every week, hit subscribe and let's keep going. We're going to break down exactly how you buy back your freedom without falling for the traps everyone else blindly ignores.